Hey Guru Nation, welcome back to the clinicaltrialsguru.com. My name is Dan Sfera. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to the blog, follow me on all those social networks, especially Instagram and Snapchat as of late. So this video is going to be how to interview if you're going in for a research position, whether that's a study coordinator or a CRA or a research assistant. I'll try to focus on those three, but this applies to any position in research, okay? The last video I did was how a research clinic can convince an experienced study coordinator or an experienced research assistant to work for them. There's always pros and cons to every organization that someone works for, and it's your job as the site owner or as the organization director or whoever's interviewing candidates to sell your candidate, if you want them there, on why they should work for nobody else except you. Right? Now this video is the opposite. It's what do you do if you're the coordinator or you're the CRA? How do you interview? Right? How do you interview for these jobs? To be completely honest with you, until very recently, meaning literally January of 2017, I've always been the one on the other side of that interviewing table. I've always interviewed candidates. The last video was very much me. I'm trying to convince people often to join our organizations. That was me. It wasn't until January of 2017, which we're still in that month, that I actually started going out and interviewing for independent contract CRA positions. Mostly because I want to learn the process better. I want to understand the interview process better. I've never worked for a large CRO or a sponsor. I've always worked for like small SMOs and things like that. So I wanted to see the inner workings of larger organizations. So that's why I started doing that. And then I was able to communicate this. We've already had a few webinars in my CRA Academy. And like the questions that keep coming up are job interviews, job interviews, job interviews. So in this video, I'm going to try to break it down for you. I've had 5 interviews so far, all CRA positions, okay? But this will apply for everyone. So there's different interview styles. I certainly have not gone through that many. I've only gone through 5. But there's different interview styles, all right? Some people, they've already done their homework on you. They've looked at your resume. They know they want you. So it's their job to convince you to work for them because they know that other people want you. Those are the easiest interviews. They just are basically confirming that you do know what you're talking about, which is important. And if you don't, join the CRA Academy, go intern somewhere, go work as a research assistant if you're trying to be a coordinator, go work as a coordinator if you're trying to be a CRA. Just climb your way up the ladder, get some experience so that you actually know what you're talking about when they ask you these things, right? And we're going to get back to that as well. So the next type of interviewer is someone who hasn't done their research on you, and maybe they have a whole bunch of candidates that they're looking at for just to fill one position, right? Totally different kind of interview, and I've had this one as well. So what they do is they're going to ask you situational and behavioral questions. And if they don't, but if you feel like that might come up, you should preemptively do it. So there's a technique called the STAR method, which is something I actually learned from one of the instructors in my own CRA Academy, right? So situation, task, action, and response, right? So you explain a situation or a task that you had, and you have to be specific, don't be vague. So I went to a research site and I met with the PI, and the PI had a lot of turnover of their study staff. So what is your action, and then what was the result? So if you preemptively go in there talking about these kind of things, if you feel like that's where the interview's heading, and you're the one who needs to start selling yourself, and you can tell within the first 5 minutes which interview you're going to be in. Are they trying to sell you to join their company, or do you need to sell them? If the latter is the case, you need to sell them, then you better come up with some of these situations and or tasks, and then have your actions and responses. You better have these things down. If you don't know anything, you got to look at your CV, hopefully recall some specific events, specific, not vague, and then talk about it. Other times, they're just going to start peppering you, and I've had this last week on Friday. They're going to start peppering you with these situational questions. The one I got Friday was, you show up at a site, there's a lot of early terminations from the study participants at this site, there's a lot of loss to follow-ups with the study participants at the site. What do you do? And then I answered that one, and then the person asked me another one, and then I answered that, and the person asked me another one. So I was getting peppered with these kind of questions. They were related to patient recruitment, study coordinator training, PI oversight, patient retention. So there was a lot of different things. They can come at you from different angles, and it becomes very evident to the interviewer whether you know what you're talking about or you don't, which again, I circle back to my CRA Academy and your own internship experience or paid experience. Okay, again, if you want to be a study coordinator, go intern at a research site as a patient recruiter. Every research clinic is going to want to talk to a patient recruiter because every research clinic has problems with patient recruitment. Those are commission-only positions usually. Or go interview at that site to intern as a research assistant so you can become a study coordinator, right? Or if you want to be a CRA and you don't have experience, go try to be a study coordinator or a research assistant or a patient recruiter first, and then work your way up so that when you get to the interviews, you want to make sure that you give the best presentation you possibly can when they ask you these behavioral questions. So if you feel like you have weaknesses somewhere, because everyone does, you want to be prepared for those things. So let's say you're going in for an oncology interview and you don't have much oncology experience. Well, you better know the criteria that they use in oncology studies, like the rating scales, like RECIST, TNM, things like that. You also better make sure you understand some common therapies for whatever type of cancers that sponsor is looking to do studies for, that they're going to hire you. If you're applying at a research site that does psychiatry trials, you better know some con meds and some side effects of some of those medications for diseases like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, depression, Alzheimer's. You get the gist, right? And if you go into the interview talking about those things, so use them in your own STAR, situational task, action, and response, then they may not ask you about it again, and your advantage at that point is you were able to tell them what you're prepared to talk about rather than being caught off guard. So hopefully this helps. Let me know if you have any other questions. Good luck to all of you guys doing interviews, and CRA Academy if you need any kind of help with understanding the fundamental principles of research and then getting your hands dirty with the EDC system, source data verifications, learning about some of these situations and tasks, and then what the appropriate actions should be so that you can talk about these things in your own interviews. And most importantly, the internship experience, so you can actually get some real experience on your resume. Thank you for watching. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.